that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the famous Tom Fennell.
Hello, people.
Hello, people. Every morning I get up early. I have dairyman's hours, get up at about 4:30 or something like that, and 4 o'clock.
Feed the cows, milk the cows. Right?
Yeah, if I were not looking at the internet, I'd be milking cows at that time. Or at least I'd be calling them in. But I get up and I look on the internet for news relating to climate change and energy, and every article I find that's interesting, I put together a 50 or 55 word synopsis and a link to the original article and put it up on my blog. And I put up 10 to 15 articles each day, a job that typically takes about 3.5, 4 hours of looking at the news.
Well, I can believe it.
Yeah, it's a lot of news searching.
I take 8 hours just to familiarize myself with what you're doing.
Tom works as hard on this show as I do. He just doesn't realize it. And if he,
well, it was 8 hours yesterday.
Yeah, and if Tom doesn't look, if Tom looks like a deer in the headlights as he's here, it's because he's doing engineering work for the show as we operate. He's the one who switches, manipulating the cameras and so forth, using a mouse.
Like I'm about to do.
Yeah, right. Anyway, the blog is called geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. There's a calendar there. You can look on the blog, click on the calendar date, which we will try to remember to provide you with as we switch days, so that you can find the article and read it if you think that it's interesting enough to go to.
Well, some of these articles are very interesting and very in-depth.
Yeah.
And they're just too long for us to discuss in depth.
Some of them we could go on. In fact, the last 3 or 4 that we're going to be talking about today, I think we could spend a couple of hours on those.
Well, we
easily.
could.
Just sit here and talk.
If I find it's particularly interesting, I'll try to remember to mention it.
Yeah.
Other than that, you know.
You wanted to start with a quote. Why don't you click to... let's start with that.
What a good place to start.
Why don't you put the camera on yourself so that people can see you pretending to be a deer in the headlights?
Hi, folks. I got this quote off the internet yesterday, and I thought it was so appropriate that I copied it down to read it today. It's from Thomas Edison.
Thomas Edison, way back in the 1930s.
1931.
Well, there you go.
We are like tenant farmers chopping down the fence around our house for fuel, when we should be using nature's inexhaustible sources of energy, sun, wind, and tide.
There you go.
I'd put my money on the sun and solar energy. What a source of power.
Yeah.
I hope we don't have to wait until oil and coal run out before we tackle that.
Well, what do you know? Thomas Edison was a man ahead of his time.
He was talking to Henry Ford and Harvey Firestone at the time that it was recorded.
Yep.
And he spent a lot of time with those guys. They were close friends.
Yeah. In fact, before the show, Tom was telling me they used to go fishing and didn't bait the hooks. Because they wanted to be able to gab without having people bother them. Okay, our first item is from Thursday, March 23rd, which is a week ago today being the 30th of March, the day that this show is recorded, and very few people see this show on the day it's recorded.
Yeah, we've got a picture coming up.
We have a picture. Oh, yes, we do. There you go. Whoop. What's going on here? What's going on here? There we go.
There we go.
Okay, this is from Energy Business Review. Got a title?
Yeah, I do. Toshiba and Ormat commissioned the first unit of a $1.17 billion geothermal plant in Indonesia. And that's the plant right there.
That's the plant.
I'm wondering what all those green things are, because they're not photocells.
They're not photocells. I wonder if they're
fans.
They might be cooling system. I mean, this is geothermal is a thermal plant, just like coal and natural gas and nuclear. They
Why don't you
need
tell us,
they need cooling
tell
towers.
us how it works.
Yeah, Toshiba and Ormat Technologies commissioned the first 110 megawatt unit of this $1.17 billion Sarula geothermal power plant in North Sumatra, India. The 320.8 megawatt power plant uses technologies from Toshiba and Ormat to provide a high efficiency and 100% re-injection of the used geothermal fluid. So basically what happens is you dig a hole in the ground, it might be a mile deep.
Deep enough to get to the hot stuff.
Deep enough to get to the hot stuff.
And it's always there, it's just a matter
It's
how
always
deep.
there, no matter where you are on the earth. There are places where you can get to it in feet.
Well, like in
Iceland. But here in Indonesia, where in any area where you have volcanoes, you're likely to have hot geothermal, not very far under the ground. This is different from geothermal heating that you hear about in people's homes. That's a very different thing where you're just getting the heat.
Same name, different, way different.
Yeah, you're
process.
getting heat that actually is from the sun heating the soil during the summer and
the
air heating,
Yeah.
and that can be obtained during the winter because the ground doesn't cool off very much once you get down about 50 inches. But here you're going down maybe 100 feet to maybe even
Could be miles. I
Could
mean,
be miles. And you get to a point where if you put water down there, it's going to boil. And they have a fluid they pump through, and in this particular case, they're reusing that same fluid over and over again rather than pushing.
Which is environmentally sound.
It's
really.
environmentally sound, yeah. And they just get the heat from the earth, and that is how they run the power plant. It is a thermal power plant, which means that you're driving generators with steam or something along those lines, and it means that you have a fair amount of heat that you have to get rid of. Probably 2/3 of the energy that they're getting out of the ground has to be got rid of, put into the atmosphere. But it's much kinder.
Or re-injected into the earth.
Or possibly, yeah. But they have to get rid of it somehow, and this is a much kinder way of dealing with the environment than coal is, or natural gas, or
Duh.
Okay, so
Okay.
we have some stuff later on in this broadcast which is going to be interesting, and we want to be certain that we're going to get to it.
Well, we'll come a little bit
So
closer
we're
to
going
home
to try to
here.
move a little fast. This is from PV Buzz Media.
Massachusetts could be the first state to run on 100% renewable energy.
Yep, 50 Massachusetts lawmakers put their support behind a bill that would transition the state's energy system to renewable resources. All of the state's electricity will be required to come from clean energy initiatives like solar and wind by 2035, provided that the bill passes. Energy for heating and transportation would be all renewably sourced by 2050.
Well, it hasn't passed yet, but a lot of the lawmakers have already indicated their support.
Their support, yeah.
So it looks very likely.
It looks likely. And you know, we'll our next item coming up, do you want to go straight to it?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, this is Echo Watch.
25 cities now committed to 100% renewables.
Right.
Hey guys, this is a trend.
I guess it is. Madison, Wisconsin, and Abita Springs, Louisiana are moving to 100% renewable energy following city council votes. Madison and Abita Springs, and I don't know that Abita is the way that's actually pronounced. Do you, Tom?
I don't know.
You know, the way they do things in Louisiana, it could be Abita or Abita, or, you know.
Yeah.
Are the first cities in Wisconsin and Louisiana to make up this commitment. They join 23 other cities across the United States, from large ones like San Diego to small ones like Greensburg, Kansas, which is a city with a population of about 800 or 900. Abita Springs voted 70% for Donald Trump, and they're doing this 100% renewable thing.
Well, this is interesting because this is a takeaway from the article. Last year's Gallup poll indicated that for the first time, they're talking countrywide, that a majority of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents prefer an alternative energy strategy.
Well, there's a lot of reasons to do it.
Well, they give them two. Fights climate change, saves lives by eliminating air pollution, creates jobs in a rapidly booming renewable energy sector,
Yep.
stabilizes energy prices.
Yep.
There's probably half a dozen other reasons.
There's a bunch of reasons. Okay, we are up to Friday, March 24th. We have a picture here. Another picture, and this is kind of depressing. This is from Clean Technica.
New, there's an emphasis on new. New
Yep.
hydropower capacity totaled 31.5 gigawatts in 2016.
According to the 2017 Key Trends in Hydropower, published this week by the International Hydropower Association, a total of 31.5 gigawatts of hydropower capacity was commissioned worldwide in 2016, including 6.4 gigawatts of pumped storage, nearly twice the amount installed in 2015. Hydropower capacity is now 1,246 gigawatts. And you know, when you think about that, a gigawatt of hydropower is going to be probably, the capacity factor is going to be about 2/3 of the capacity factor of a nuclear plant, which means this is the equivalent of about 800 nuclear plants.
Okay.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
And they're pretty reliable.
They're pretty reliable, although if you have a drought, which you can have with climate change, they reduce their power, which is what happened in California up until 2 weeks ago.
Take a quick look at that picture there, though.
North America.
North America is all the way over there on the right. We missed the boat in this.
We missed the boat. And you know what? This is something that people in environmentalists in particular in North America are very unhappy about hydropower because they don't like the idea of flooding fields and blocking rivers. But it doesn't have to be that way. And in fact, we have rivers that are blocked because we need to have them blocked for
flood control.
For flood control. And in Vermont, we have a bunch of rivers that are blocked with dams that are not being used for hydropower. And one of the people I've talked to about this said that she had figured out for the U.S. Department of Energy that the amount of hydropower that we could get out of those dams in Vermont, if they were all developed, would be over 200 megawatts.
They have tremendous potential.
Tremendous.
And they're starting to activate that.
Yeah.
They're starting to do it. I think they just either have just opened up or are about to open up Townsend Dam.
They have opened up
Yeah.
Townsend Dam. And another
in
one up
addition
there
to
too.
that, all of New England, not just Vermont, is loaded with old mills.
Oh yeah, yeah. These are all over the United States.
They're not being used for anything.
Yeah, this is something like 8,000 megawatts of hydropower in the United States is available and not being developed.
Well, I did read somewhere in Vermont alone, we could power the state if we put turbines in every one of these old mills. Which they wouldn't be able to do, but...
Yeah, but I had thought it was less than that, but it doesn't matter.
What's that town down by Bennington? Just south of Bennington is a town.
Pownell?
Huh?
Pownell?
It is Pownell.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Pownell, where there's a couple of private entrepreneurs own some of these old mills.
Right.
They're doing exactly that. They're opening them up.
In fact, Green Energy Times, I write for Green Energy Times, and we had about a year ago, we had an ad appear for a place, that was, home that was for sale in that area. It was north of Bennington, not south, where the house was in an old mill that had a dam, and the dam had the equipment in place for generating power, although it hadn't been used for years and it would have to be replaced. But it was part of the whole package. You could move in, you could hook this thing up, and you could go.
Off the grid.
Off the grid if you wanted to, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I've stayed in Ireland a couple times at exactly such a place. Mm-hmm. It's a guest house. That's the old mill house.
Yep.
And the owner has put in 2 turbines.
Do you hear them running at night?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, our next item is from Wind Tech International.
EON is the name of the company.
Yep.
Stabilizing the electricity grid with wind power.
E.ON will be one of the first companies to stabilize the German electricity grid with wind power. This was made possible by the integration of a wind farm in Brandenburg into E.ON's virtual power plant. The wind farm is made part of a virtual power plant having 3,800 megawatts of generation from various sources.
So we got a generating company that's in a laptop.
Yeah, this is from Windtech International.
Well, this 3,800 megawatts comes from various renewable and industrial sources.
Which are organized on the grid by a laptop.
By a laptop, yeah.
I don't know that they are by a laptop, but it's by a computer.
The article says sufficient capacity for the grid is always available.
Always available. How do you like that? You know, and you know, as these virtual power plants are brought online, where if you need something, there's always something out there that will deliver it. And
that's the whole point. It's always been out there.
Yeah.
But now you got one central location where somebody just got to push a button.
Right, and you know,
push a key, really.
Right, people who say, well, the wind isn't always blowing, the sun isn't always shining, they're unreliable, don't understand the nature of electric power on the grid. It has never been a case that we got all our power from baseload power. Baseload power is the minimum we need.
Yeah.
And there's always
That's why
been,
they call it baseload.
Yeah, and there's always been something that got added to baseload to deal with our
sometimes
extra
of which
demand.
it is very expensive.
Yes, and also
not to us, but to the power company.
Yeah, and also baseload power plants have very often produced.
They get their downtime too.
Yep, but they produce more power than the grid can manage sometimes. So you have to have some way of taking that power up, which is why the Northfield Mountain plant was built.
Well, if they could take it up, that's great, but sometimes they're just wasting it.
Yes.
They're not using it at all.
Yes, but
they're paying for its generation.
A baseload power plant is going to make that power whether you want it or not, so you
Bingo.
have to take it up.
Yep.
A wind turbine you can shut down easily. You just turn it off with a computer, and it furls and stops turning. Or a solar panel, you can shut it down just by saying, I don't want that power, and it'll sit there making an electric charge that doesn't go anywhere.
Doesn't go anywhere, right?
Yeah. Okay. Our next item is from Utility Dive. We're still on the 24th of March, sorry.
Yeah, we got an image on this one too,
Yeah.
don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Let me get that up.
Kind of a scary image. The title says, Rainbows Will Not Keep Coal Alive. There you go.
Well, look, the headline is Falling Wind Energy Costs Threaten Midwestern Coal Plants.
The declining cost of wind generation has many utilities looking to add it into their portfolios, a trend that could accelerate the demise of aging coal plants. According to new analysis from Moody's Investor Services, some 56 gigawatts of Midwest coal-fired generation is at risk as wind energy comes online with lower costs. 56 gigawatts of coal-burning power plants. That's a lot, and when those shut down, that means the miners are going to be...
They're not going to open up again.
They're not going to open those up again. They could turn them to natural gas, but...
I call them zombies.
They are zombies.
You know, they're the Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead. And there it is, you know, with a rainbow over it. Oh, well.
That one, I don't even see any smoke coming out of this.
I don't think it is. Okay.
There's a quick takeaway here.
Yeah.
The declining cost of renewables has had significant impacts on wholesale power markets, with fuel-free renewables putting pressure on high operating cost fuel-based plants.
See, this is the thing. Fuel-free, the marginal cost of wind power, the marginal cost of solar power are approaching zero.
Bingo.
Which means that if the thing is paid off, they can have these things on the grid for a very low cost. And the costs of solar power, we've seen solar power being bid on in large amounts for power purchase agreements.
Less than 2 cents.
Well, less than 3 cents. But the Saudis are saying less than 2 cents they're expecting. So, you know,
United Arab Emirates.
Coal can't compete with that. Coal can't compete with 8 cents.
No, you're right. Absolutely.
And
we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, okay. We're up to Saturday, March 24th.
Got another pitch
We do indeed. There it is. Pipes near Cushing, Oklahoma. This is from National Geographic.
4 things you need to know about the approved Keystone XL pipeline, and those are a bunch of pipeline pipes.
Yep, President Donald Trump has announced that he is granting approval to the controversial Keystone XL pipeline. Trump said the 1,900-mile pipeline, which will cross much of the Great Plains in a path from Alberta to the Gulf of Mexico, will be, quote, the first of many infrastructure projects, end quote, he believes will stimulate jobs. And you know what? I don't think he's going to have all those that many infrastructure projects. I don't think
it's going to make economic sense.
Well, it isn't. I don't think this thing is going to be built. They're going to take those pipes and ship them elsewhere.
Well, the article talks about the 4 things you need to know about the approved Keystone XL
I knew
pipeline.
you were going to come up with these.
Yeah, I got them. This is a good article.
Yeah.
And they go into in depth explaining these things. I'll give you the 4 things.
Yeah, okay.
1, the pipeline may impact wildlife.
Yes.
2, the pipeline may increase oil production.
Which will impact wildlife and all of us.
3, and this is a question, will the pipeline contribute to climate change? And 4, is the pipeline's mixed picture on jobs.
Well,
and this is the article where it says definitely going to create jobs, but most of them are going to be for lawyers.
Well, they're high-paying jobs. What are you complaining about?
And it's a little codicil here. Last year, solar alone employed more people than traditional coal, oil, and gas combined.
Put together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
The times
something.
they are changing,
They are
folks.
indeed. And you know, this is the thing that I'm doing here is I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, you're going to be getting oil from what? The tar sands?
Okay, we're moving on to the next one.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one. It's from Clean Technica.
Beijing to create a green necklace to reduce smog. And by the way, I want you to see, there's a very nice picture of smog in this website.
Yeah.
We don't have a copy of it, but if you can imagine a gray rectangle, that's the picture.
Well, that's why I didn't put it up. It's just a gray rectangle. If you look closely, you can see that there's a couple of hard edges in there, but not much. Beijing and the entire surrounding province of Hebei, I don't know that I'm pronouncing that right either.
I'm sure you're wrong, but who cares?
Will be planting trees and creating new green belts, according to reports. The idea is apparently to leverage existing rivers, wetlands, mountains, and open spaces to create a, quote, green necklace, end quote, that will help to reduce smog problems, the Hebei government has revealed. There you go.
Little takeaway here, Beijing actually decommissioned its last coal-fired power plant earlier this month.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're talking about the town Beijing.
Yes.
Not using Beijing as a catchword for the whole country.
Yes. Right. Town Beijing. That's an interesting way to describe it.
Well, it's like, people talk about the government, they call it Washington.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same analogy.
Yeah, exactly. Or they'll talk about 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah, they'll do that one too.
Which
Or the
is
White House.
kind of taking it to the opposite extreme. Okay, we're up to Sunday, March
This is a good
26th.
one. This is a good one.
This
New
is a
North
good one.
Sea wind power hub could supply 70 to 100 million people with renewable energy by 2050.
Yeah, 3 European transmission system operators have signed a trilateral agreement this week that intends to develop a large renewable European electricity system in the North Sea. It is expected that the North Sea Wind Power Hub will supply as many as 70 to 100 million people in Europe with renewable energy by 2050. And this is an interesting one because they're basically tying this to everything.
Well, there's a lot of activity in the North Sea going on already.
Already.
Okay, the Scots, the English, the Danes,
Norwegians, the Germans.
There's a lot of turbines going up there, and it's ideal. It's shallow.
Yep.
Okay, and there's a map in this article that shows you basically what's going on.
Yep.
And they're planning on building an island.
Yep.
And we've talked about this.
We
one
have
before.
actually talked about
right
it.
in the middle of this, which is equidistant.
Yeah.
From England, Norway, Denmark,
Yeah.
France, Germany. Bingo, bingo. And all these guys have to do is throw a line out there in the form of a high voltage DC undersea cable, which we now have the technology
Like
to
fly
build.
fishing.
Exactly. just like Tom Edison.
The thing that's new about this is that it is expected to connect to all of those people, 70 to 100 million
That's
people.
the news here. They're getting their act together and they're saying, let's do this together.
Yeah. And that means that that power is going to be able to be available to whoever needs it.
Basically, yes.
Which means that it's a huge area. The wind is always blowing somewhere out there. And it means that all those countries will be tied together. And,
Oh, absolutely. They can trade power amongst each other.
That's right. There are reasons why a big grid is a nice thing. There's a reasons why distributed power that doesn't need a grid is a nice thing. And they can work together.
The combination of the two is probably ideal.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Sunday, March 26th, with a piece from the Sierra Sun-Times.
Yeah, we got a nice picture here.
Yeah, we do.
I love this bird. This is a beautiful,
beautiful bird. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So streamlined.
It reminds me of an occasion when I saw a bird flying, and I looked up and I said, "Oh, goose." And then I looked at it a little bit more, and I realized
it's not a goose.
It was flying backwards. And what I had taken for the tail of the goose was actually the head and neck of a blue heron, and what I took for the neck of the goose was the legs of the blue heron sticking out behind. Anyway, you got a title on this. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Audubon says the Keystone XL pipeline is an extra large disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, it is, no question about it. After President Trump granted a permit for TransCanada Corp's Keystone XL pipeline, the National Audubon Society issued a statement saying that the Keystone XL pipeline puts America's birds and people in danger and would further destabilize our changing climate. The pipeline will only make the future more uncertain, and I have no doubt that that is true.
That bird is called a sandhill crane.
Yes.
And the sandhill is named after a part of Nebraska. Called the Sandhills.
Yes, which are
and
very sandy.
Every year, thousands of these guys migrate from the Gulf of Mexico up to northwestern Canada, Siberia, Alaska, and they land here midway in their migration.
Okay.
And apparently it's quite a spectacular thing. This is the kind of thing that tourists drive hundreds of miles to see.
I believe it. Okay, we are up to an article from the Smithsonian. And we have
a quick takeaway here from the article.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Millions of Americans want a speedy transition to a clean energy economy. Why isn't the White House listening?
No. Why indeed?
We'll talk
my
about that a little
suggestion
later.
is that maybe it's because they're being paid not to listen.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later.
This article coming up is from the Smithsonian. A very confusing picture.
Those are light bulbs, folks.
Those are light bulbs in reflectors, parabolic reflectors.
This new man-made sun is 10,000 times more intense than sunlight on Earth.
The German Aerospace Center just powered up a massive artificial sun using an array of 149 gigantic spotlights. It produces sunlight, which can heat things up to 5,432 degrees Fahrenheit. I wonder who took that temperature. The effort is part of a research to use sunlight to make hydrogen to use for fuel. Unfortunately, the article wasn't very clear about that. With an artificial sun...
I think that's deliberate.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to tip their hand to what they're doing.
Yeah. With the artificial sun, the research can continue on rainy days.
Basically, they're looking for a cheap way to make hydrogen because you can do a lot with hydrogen.
Well, hydrogen is basically the basic building block for everything else. You can't do anything without hydrogen.
When you burn it, it doesn't pollute.
When you burn it, you make water.
Okay. I was very interested in those light bulbs, and I want to know what the heck they were.
Yeah.
And it turns out they're what they call xenon short arc bulbs.
Okay.
Which you never heard of one, but there's one within a mile from here.
Okay.
They use them in movie projectors.
Oh, really?
And they're water-cooled.
Water-cooled.
Yeah.
Oh,
and they're very sophisticated bulbs and very bright.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Monday, March 27th. Yeah, and we have an item here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Let me get this thing moved. Here it goes. Here we go. We got a picture here, too.
Yeah, I've already got it up.
Well, sort of. I don't
sort
have
of.
it up.
I have it up for you.
You got it up.
Yeah.
A conservative still pushing for a carbon tax.
If 5 years ago Bob Inglis' optimism about building a coalition of conservatives to enact a carbon tax seemed far-fetched, today it's a study in faith. He lost his South Carolina congressional seat to a Tea Party candidate in 2010, but has been reborn as a conservative climate activist. And I think we should explain what that picture is.
Yeah, that's from Hollywood, Florida.
Yeah.
Which is just north of Miami.
Yeah. And this is what's called sunny day flooding. As you can see, the sun is shining and the road is flooded. And that guy
That's seawater.
is driving his little motorcycle through salt water, which is not going to be kind to it. Boy, I wouldn't.
I don't imagine he got much more than 50 feet further on that before the water stopped it.
Maybe, but I mean that water's going to stop that motorcycle permanently if he keeps doing that.
Yep.
And unfortunately, this is a thing that people don't, people around here don't talk about. Sunny day flooding is a problem that comes up every other week in places like this. That road probably floods every 2 weeks.
Probably does.
Because when the sun is when the moon is when the moon, the sun, and the earth are all lined up in order, as they are on a new moon or a full moon, the tides are higher.
So that's high tide.
That's this high tide.
And the ocean water is backing up through the sewers.
Right, and this is what's called a spring tide. And the person who wrote the article, I suspect, didn't understand that a spring tide, the word spring tide, refers to a tide that happens twice a month, as opposed to seasonal tides in the spring.
Okay.
But this is a problem that happens 2, 3 times, 4 times a month. And it happens because the engineers who designed the roads in that city and designed the drainage in that city did not realize that that sea was going to rise, and it has because of climate change, which of course Donald Trump says isn't happening. Well, the American Lung Association in California calculated the cost of our use of fossil fuels just in the transportation sector, and what they said was the cost in terms of medical costs from the burning of fossil fuels for transportation is $1.30 a gallon. Nobody's paying for that except the people who get sick,
yeah,
and people who pay insurance, and people who pay taxes,
and people who die.
Yeah, and people who die. And Donald Trump wants to reduce the tax benefits going to people who get sick. So, basically what he wants to do is make sure that the fossil fuels industry, which is doing this to people, can make bigger profits. That's not going to last.
Not very long.
No.
And it's not going to last only because the pot isn't big enough.
Yeah. Okay. Our next item comes from Green Energy Times, which I write for.
This says Trump to sign executive order undoing Obama cuts in power plant emissions.
You know what? That isn't the one that I've got in front of me.
We're going to be talking about this about 3 times today.
Okay, this is from Voice of America. Sorry about that,
Yep.
which you pay for with your tax money. Donald Trump will sign an executive order this week scrapping Obama cuts in power plant emissions, according to the Trump environment chief. EPA Director Scott Pruitt told ABC Television's This Week broadcast that Trump believes the U.S. needs what he calls a, quote, pro-growth and pro-environment approach, end quote. Well, my guess is that if you really want a combination of those two, the best thing to do is get rid of Donald Trump.
We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go.
Okay. More? Or
I don't think
go on? Okay.
I've got more I could talk about, but let's move on.
Okay, Green Energy Times is our next piece, and this is, as I said, a publication, one of a couple that I write for.
Is this the one we're going to be talking about?
Yes.
Brattleboro Town Meeting expresses concern?
Yes.
How strange.
How strange. Okay. This is actually, the article is about me, and I'm writing about myself. Is that some kind of nepotism? One of the wonderful
Full disclosure.
Yeah, I'm just going to read this. One of the wonderful things we have in Vermont is real democracy, in which the voice of people can be heard. The Representative Town Meeting of Brattleboro, Vermont voted on the following motion, which I brought to the floor on the 25th of March, 2017. I move that the Brattleboro Representative Town Meeting express its concern that the federal government is ignoring the health and well-being of its citizens, violating the guarantees of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, violating our right to a government that represents its citizens. Expresses its concern that these acts may involve collusion with a hostile foreign power, and that for that reason, the identities and actions of the parties responsible should be investigated and, as it is found fitting, prosecuted for treason against the United States and crimes against humanity.
That's pretty heavy.
I addressed the issue as follows. According to the World Health Organization, another person dies of problems associated with outdoor air pollution about every 10 seconds. The problem arises...
10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Boom. He just died.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
The problem, in the 3 minutes that it'll take me to deliver this, 18 people will die. The problem arises mostly from our use of fossil fuels. Here in Vermont, our health is at risk. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, air pollution in the U.S. costs the country $500 billion in 2010. The American Lung Association in California said medical costs associated with fossil fuels in Vermont for transportation alone come to $330 million a year. That's $480 per person, mostly masked in medical insurance and taxes. According to the Arbor Day Foundation, nearly the entire state of Vermont is in a different hardiness zone than it was in 1990, meaning that it is 10 degrees warmer on the coldest winter nights. This is 10 degrees Fahrenheit. This has allowed increased numbers of deer ticks, bringing us Lyme disease.
That's something we don't notice. It's not that the coldest days are getting colder. Well, it is. The coldest days are getting warmer.
Warmer, yeah.
It's not that the average temperature is getting colder, but the coldest days, which are the ones that you're going to talk about, do damage to the ticks, aren't happening anymore.
That's right. This has allowed increased numbers of deer ticks, bringing us Lyme disease. The change in climate is almost certainly due to our use of fossil fuels, our meaning worldwide.
Everybody's.
Our environment is at risk, and with it, the well-being of future generations. According to the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, we have lost about 73% of our seabird populations in the last 60 years. According to the World Wildlife Fund, we have lost 60% of our wildlife populations worldwide in the last 40 years. And we are seeing another species go extinct about every 10 minutes. Most of the loss is associated with the use of fossil fuels. The geographical ranges of moose and ticks have never overlapped, so moose have no instinct to groom for ticks. Now, with climate change brought mostly by fossil fuels, dead moose are being found with upwards of 60,000 winter ticks on them. A fully engorged female adult winter tick is about the size of a grape.
Yeah.
Big. According to an article in the Boston Globe, over 70% of the moose calves in in New Hampshire and Maine were killed by winter ticks. This is just one example of problems with climate change. Flood insurance claims in the United States came to $82 million in 1978. With the growth of population and inflation, we would expect a rise by a factor of 6 since then, but it has not. It has gone up by a factor of 42. This according to data from the U.S. federal government. A major factor in the increased costs is climate change. And by the way, the record payout, which had been $78 million in $82 million in 1978, the record has been $1.7 billion.
Wow.
Yeah. The current federal administration is clearly focused on the benefit of big business or businesses associated with the fossil fuels industry. These industries put hundreds of millions of dollars into buying supportive congressional seats. Their election goals
they wouldn't do a thing like that.
Nah. Their election goals appear to have been supported covertly by the government of Russia, which has for years been hostile to our country and gets 65% of its export revenues from the sale of fossil fuels. I would note Richard Painter, the White House ethics attorney for George W. Bush, refers to the possible connections between the Trump administration and Russia as potentially treasonous. And having delivered that, no one rose to speak against it, and it passed without further substantive discussion with very few votes in dissent.
There was only one vote against it.
No, I could see 3.
You were there. Huh?
And I was there. I could see 3 people vote against it, and I was only seeing about a third of the audience. So it's possible, if they were representative, that 10 people out of about 110 voted against it. So 10%.
By the way, if you just heard the whole speech, really.
Yeah, really.
But Green Energy Times is available free at numerous locations through town.
And online.
Plus, you can get it on the web.
Yeah, greenenergytimes.org.
You've heard it all already, but if you want to hear it again, it's worth hearing.
You can look at it, copy it down, share it with your friends. Okay, we should get past that one.
We got another picture coming up here.
Yes, we do, and this is a nice picture.
It is.
This is a
nice.
National Geographic
What's going on here?
photo winner.
I got to get the picture going.
You got to
up
get
there.
the picture up. There
Here
you
we
go.
go, by
wow,
Joe.
beautiful.
This is pretty.
This is from Electric.
California's solar plus wind record high at 49.2%. Renewable energy peaks above 56%.
Yep. In California, renewably sourced electricity has been setting production record goals since February 24th. On March 23rd, renewables broke 56% of total demand. According to the daily report, solar peaked at around 11:16 a.m. 3 minutes later, solar plus wind peaked at 49.2% of demand, and 9 minutes after that, total renewables peaked at 56.7%.
I'm going to put that picture up a second.
Isn't that a pretty picture?
It's pretty.
Yeah.
Those are wine fields.
And we don't have to worry about soot coming from those wind turbines and falling all over our grapes and going into the wine. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that article. So
yes, people should. The one in Electric.
Look it up there.
Yeah.
That was in National Geographic.
That was a National Geographic picture. It was from Electric. That was Tuesday, March 28th, at geoharvey.com. Our next item is from Clean Technica.
What am I?
Former head
I'm looking for a picture here.
Former head of GDF Suez.
Picture. Former head of Hazelwood coal plant says solar PV plus storage is now cheaper than natural gas.
Now, Hazelwood is a big coal plant in Australia. Which is shutting down.
Exactly.
And it belonged to GDF Suez, which is now Engie. The former head of former head of GDF Suez. That's what it says on my prompt here. Now Engie says solar PV and battery storage are already cheaper than gas-fired generation. He cited an estimate given to Reach Solar, which he now heads, in late December 2016 for solar PV and energy storage at 110 Australian dollars per megawatt hour to 130. This is in U.S.
Dollars are a little less than ours.
They're about 3/4. This in U.S. currency is $83.64 to $98.85, which is about 8.37 cents per kilowatt hour to 9.9 cents per kilowatt hour. And selling in Vermont, you could make a profit on that, and that would be solar plus PV, which we're talking about. Yeah, you can use this for base load, you can use it for peaking, you can use it for anything you want.
Solar plus batteries.
Yeah.
Yep.
A year ago, I wanted to find out what energy storage cost. I found that you could get it below $500 per kilowatt hour. Now, you can buy grid scale energy storage from EOS for $160 per kilowatt hour. So it dropped from $470 to $160.
It's going to be below 100 before long.
Wow, it's incredible. And all of a sudden,
a lot of smart people are working on batteries.
Yeah, it's true. We got to.
I just heard one yesterday. Hydrogen batteries.
Okay.
I didn't really get into the nitty gritty.
I don't know about that one.
Something brand new to me.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Climate Home.
That's
still on March 28th.
Got another picture coming
up. A picture of homes in the state of Amazonas, which is in Brazil.
Brazilian Amazon to ditch diesel for clean energy.
Although the Amazon region is home to dozens of big hydroelectric dams, their energy is sent thousands of miles south to power the homes and factories in big cities or feed electricity-intensive industries. Many of them foreign-owned aluminum smelters. Local power is usually from diesel generators, but that is changing. And those diesel generators are not just noisy and polluting.
They're expensive.
They're expensive.
So they got to haul that freight up the rivers.
That's right.
And
so these local people who live in houses, like put that back up.
Put the picture back up.
Yeah.
They're carrying it. They're carrying it on their backs.
They're carrying the load of this thing on their backs. They're using diesel power, which might cost $1 a kilowatt hour. So the people who live
cheap. It costs more than that, I bet you.
It might. But, you know, if we just say $1 per kilowatt hour, that's about, what, 8 times, 6 times what it costs in Vermont, where we complain about high costs. And you tell me that those people have got incomes.
Well, they're 4,000 miles away. They're way the heck in the middle of the Amazon jungle. And they got to carry that fuel. Well, it goes by ship to the head of the river. Then it goes up to Manaus River.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we are up to...
It's a bad system.
Wednesday, March 29th.
Well, I'll just finish this one up.
Oh, okay.
What's going on now is there's a big government program to provide renewable energy sources for all the towns in that area.
Right.
So
and it's not that expensive. Okay, our next item is from Wednesday, March 29th, and it is Clean Technica.
The 150-year-old energy giant ready to disrupt the market.
Okay.
It's Engie again.
Engie has been acquiring top startups in various arenas it considers the biggest playing fields in the future. In energy, there are 5 tsunamis or 5 disruptive trends they see occurring all at approximately the same time.
And I've got the 5.
Okay.
The first one is super competitive solar and wind energy, bringing energy costs and prices closer to zero.
Yep.
Okay, the second one, battery storage technologies are in a solar-like cost and volume race.
As we've just been saying.
Third, electric and digital mobility in an exponential drive. I'm not quite sure I know what that means. 4, the Internet of Things and big data, turning homes and buildings into active participants in the energy system.
Which means that you can choose to have your demand,
your stove,
whatever,
your
anything you can schedule,
dryer, can
be scheduled to go on the grid at a time when there's abundant grid power at a low cost,
with your approval.
Yeah, and
pretty good idea,
if you have
actually.
solar panels, they could be scheduled to go on the grid
idea.
when the grid needs it, if it's possible.
The last but not least is new hydrogen technologies and the incoming substitution of fossil fuels.
Remember that one, folks.
There's a quick takeaway from here about Engie.
Yep.
Their process is simple. Acquire top startups and then let them keep doing what they were doing as startups. Okay? Provide them with overhead support for great inefficiency, but don't interfere with what made them successful to date.
Right.
That's pretty good advice, I think.
Good advice. Okay.
Oh, now we got another picture here.
And this is from BBC News. There is Donald Trump possibly lobbying for a more suitable new job.
That didn't come from you. That came from the article.
No, it came from me.
Did it come from you?
It came from me, yes.
Trump signs order undoing Obama climate change policy.
Okay, and we're going to be talking about this for a couple of minutes. Donald Trump has signed an executive order rolling back Obama-era rules aimed at curbing climate change. He said this would put an end to the, quote, war on coal, end quote, and, quote, job-killing regulations, end quote. The Energy Independence Executive Order suspends more than half a dozen measures enacted by his predecessor and boosts fossil fuels. Don't you feel good about that?
The biggie that he's rescinded is the Clean Power Plan.
Yeah. And
which required states to slash carbon emissions.
You know, I've been looking at the news on this yesterday, and this appeared on Tuesday, on Wednesday. Today is Thursday. I looked at it yesterday. I looked at it today, and I am seeing article after article after article coming from places like Forbes, Bloomberg, Time Magazine, New York Times, Washington Post, you name it, and they all say that won't work. And it
isn't going to take very long before everybody realizes that won't work.
That won't work, because there's no way Donald Trump is going to be able to save the coal industry, because coal is too expensive.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, well, let's
read. He goes
read.
down to Kentucky and he talks to the Kentucky miners. Say, I'm going to restore your jobs.
Those miners.
It's not renewables that's taking the jobs.
No,
it's
it
the cost
isn't.
of coal.
It's the cost of coal. And these miners, unfortunately, are being duped. And when they find out they're being duped, they're not
They're
going to
gonna be
vote
upset.
Republican again.
Not for a long while.
And, didn't you say that before the show started that you thought the Republicans were starting to worry that maybe they were going to lose power and that was going to be that for them? This would be their last
I did say
chance.
that. I said exactly
I
that.
think that's what's going on. Let's do the next two of these things, and then we can just sit
we
back
got one in the
and
middle.
kick our feet up and talk about this.
Yeah, we got one in the middle.
This one is from the Salt Lake Tribune.
Budweiser's brewer, the brewer of Budweiser beer,
Yeah.
won't burn coal Trump vows to revive.
Now, this is interesting because this announcement came out the same day that Donald
It did.
Trump signed this executive order.
It did.
Anheuser-Busch InBev, the world's biggest beer maker, plans to get all of its electricity from renewables by 2025, shifting 6 terawatt hours of electricity
That's
away
a
from fossil
lot of
fuels.
electricity.
They use more electricity than the whole state of Vermont does.
Just making beer.
Just making beer, but they're all over the place. But this is like probably 30% to 50% of this power was coming from coal, and it's all going to be coming from, and some of it was coming from natural gas, and it's all going to be coming from renewable power.
And that's the decision they've made on their own.
They made this on their own. The company's announcement comes the same day Donald Trump signed an executive order undoing the Clean Power Plan. But they did this for reasons that are not addressed by Trump's undoing the Clean Power Plan. Why? Because renewable energy is less expensive. That's a big thing. But another thing that they can do is they can cash in on the fact that they are the good guys, which of course means that Donald Trump is not a good guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a losing game he's playing here, and it's going to lose badly. Okay, and now we should go to our next item and then talk
is the
about
last one,
all
isn't it?
together. And this one is from RTE.ie, which, by the way, indicates to me that it's from Ireland.
It is, yes. RTE's radio television Aaron.
Okay.
Yep. U.S. states and cities to challenge Trump executive order.
Don't you love this? A coalition of 23 U.S. states and local governments has vowed to challenge in court President Trump's latest executive order reversing a raft of President Obama's climate change regulations. The coalition includes states like California, Massachusetts, Virginia, as well as cities including Chicago, Philadelphia, and Boulder, Colorado. Now, the thing that is mind-boggling about this is the response to Trump signing this executive order is a bunch of cities and states that are already behind the action to stop climate change, saying, well, we have to do more.
Yeah.
So Trump's executive order is not going to have any effect on those states that are already using a lot of coal and want to stay there, because they've got out of the thing by having a stay put on it by the federal courts, putting a stay on the Clean Power Plan.
Being, anyhow.
But what he has done is he's sped up everybody who was shifting away from them. And this is a situation which is going to backfire really, really, really badly, I think.
I think you're right. There's a quick takeaway here.
Yeah.
Environmental groups have called the Energy Independence Executive Order, which is the one we're talking about,
Yep.
a threat to public health that goes against the global trend toward cleaner energy technologies. And this is a quote: trying to make fossil fuels remain competitive in the face of booming clean renewable power with the clean air and plentiful jobs it continues to generate is going against the flow of economics.
The clean power jobs have been growing at the fastest rate of any category of jobs in the United States. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And I was kind of stunned when I went to the Massachusetts websites on the subject and found that there were entry-level jobs in Massachusetts that were above $50,000 a year.
Now, that's a pretty good job.
Now, admittedly, most people would not want jobs like these because it involves dangling on a rope
dangling
35 stories in the air. But nevertheless, they do exist. And you don't have to be dangling from a rope 35 stories in the air to have a good job, because solar power jobs very often start at 40,000 or something like that. The median, or
Well, there's
close
plenty
to
of
it.
solar power jobs.
Plenty
you
of
get to
solar
keep both
power.
feet on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Most of the
Most
time.
of the time.
Unless you're on somebody's roof, which is not as bad as dangling from a wind turbine. But, you know, even the low paying jobs are a starting point for a person who needs a job, and a good one.
A lot of these jobs are going to veterans.
A lot are going to
Yeah.
veterans. And we saw that beautiful video of a young woman in Montana who came down to Massachusetts, and there she was. It was a Weather Channel video, and really, I'd like to get it up.
I'm sure we get a couple of stills at the very
We
least.
can get some stills. I've already got some stills. I should have put them on. I'll try to remember to put them on for next week. But this is an attractive young woman. And if you go to her website, you discover that she's a singer, guitar player, and she does this, that, and the other thing. And by the way, she's a wind turbine technician. Does rock climbing. But, you know, getting back to these other things, this thing that Donald Trump has done has got the People's Republic of China saying, oh, we can lead the world. What?
It might very well be happening.
Oh, it is happening. They've already got a budget, you know, as I think we mentioned on the show, for $360 billion for the 5-year plan that they're halfway through. They're saying they're going to have 13 million jobs in clean technology by 2020. The United States right now has 600 and some odd thousand jobs in wind and sun, but they've got a lot more than that. Because clean tech includes things like weatherizing, insulation, things of that nature. But even so, these are good jobs. They're all over the place, and Donald Trump is trying to resurrect a technology that was introduced almost 200 years ago. Really, I mean, what are we doing here? Okay, so it wasn't making electricity 200 years ago, but you go into a coal-burning power plant today, and a person who was in the industry 100 years ago would have looked at it and said, "Wow, you've really modernized things. You know, you've got augers.
You don't use shovels anymore.
You don't use shovels anymore. You got augers and stuff like that." And I'm sorry, people who are here, this is like saying that a person with a mechanical adding machine and a manual typewriter and a slide rule in his office would come into the 20th century and say, "Oh, you've got 21st century, you've got electric typewriters and electric adding machines." Amazing. That can multiply. Wow, an adding machine that can multiply. I'm sorry, we've got computers. We're living in a different age. And Donald Trump doesn't seem to understand that.
Not from what he's done so far. I don't
know.
No.
And, you know, as I was saying, you see article after article after article in places like Forbes and Bloomberg and Time Magazine saying this won't work. It won't work. Nothing he's doing here is going to work. He's not going to save coal, and in fact, my expectation is that over the next 3 years, we're going to start seeing a serious decline in the oil and gas industries because the price of solar power plus batteries, wind power plus batteries, and especially the combination of the three, solar plus wind plus batteries, is falling below the cost of the cheapest fossil fuels, which is combined cycle natural gas for new fossil fuels.
So change is coming, that's for sure.
Change is coming.
And it's not going to be driven so much by green thinking as it is by economics.
Economics are going to
dollars and cents.
Absolutely, and economics are going to push this. Although, you know, the resolution that I had before the Brattleboro Town Meeting talks about another species becoming extinct every 10 minutes, another person dying every 10 seconds.
Well, that's the real sad part of it.
And people in Vermont are sick and they don't know this in many cases, that if they've got emphysema or if they've got lung cancer or if they've got chronic bronchitis or asthma or possibly liver cancer or certain kinds of digestive problems, cardiac problems, circulatory problems. All of these can come from exposure to fossil fuels.
Well, they're exacerbated by it.
Exacerbated, and the American Lung Association says it's just from transportation, it's costing us $480 per person per year in Vermont. Now you throw in, because transportation is less than half of our use of fossil fuels, you double that plus a little, you're talking about $1,000 a year.
Well, part of the problem is we're not seeing what's really happening. They die and the death certificate says emphysema or something like that. It
Yes.
doesn't say air pollution.
Yes, and we are over on our time, Tom. We have to end the show. We could go on and on.
We could go on. I'm just getting myself warmed up. Well, let me put
We'll
us
have to
both
say
up
goodbye.
here and
Okay.
we can wave goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, guys.
Have a really nice week.
We spin and we toil, we work all day, sowing and reaping, we store goods away, so we can be dressed well on the day that we die. We dig and drill and waste what we find, break up the earth, leaving little behind, but we will grow lilies in the by and by. I want to point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle